Now let's take a look at the bigger picture. Mish Schneider is with us, Chief Strategist at MarketGauge.com. Good to see you, Mish. We're hitting some new highs, at least in some parts, right? Tell me about how you react to this kind of market. How do you feel about it?
Well, Nicole, we have talked so much about small caps for the last couple of years and the incredible underperformance with the consumer, also retail sector underperforming along with transportation and the regional bank sector. Really, these were the major components of my economic modern family in a range. And now that has all madly reversed. So for the family, it's cheerful and wonderful. And with IWM now getting close to where it broke down from back in January of 2022, maybe we're getting a little bit lofty. That doesn't necessarily mean a top, but this move has been explosive. We could see some kind of a correction. And I think Granny Retail, basically, I call her Granny, just woke up today. The retail sales numbers were okay, but it's really following a trajectory of expectation of lower interest rates. And all of these inside sectors will benefit if that does indeed happen.
Yeah, and I know you're keeping a keen eye on a few things, what the Fed may or may not do, anything pertaining to the elections, right? Let's start with the elections. I mean, obviously we had a big weekend. The bettors are making their bets this week pertaining on who's going to be the winner of the election. How are you positioning portfolios? What are you thinking here?
Well, I try not to necessarily position based on assumptions of an election because look what happened in 2016. Pretty much a week and a half before the election came that big story about Trump, and I grabbed them by the you-know-what, and it looked like Hillary was going to be the shoo-in, and then James Comey came out about the email server, and that was the end of her. So you just never really know. Right now, obviously, it looks very much like it's in Trump's favor. His choice of Vance also adds basically a lot of the things that he's been talking about with Bitcoin. And so those are the sectors that we've been in anyway. So we're happy because of these stories today. The question is going to be, can they sustain? So I like to go back and trade off of really basically the fundamentals that we've talked about, which is these inside sectors showing the possibility of a soft landing, maybe. And then the individual sectors, I mean, no surprise to me that crypto would start taking off even before this happened.
Yeah, let's talk about crypto. I mean, since you opened that can of worms, let's go for it. I mean, crypto, people wanted it back to 75. They were holding 65 only to see it drop below 60 and, started really scratching their heads. And now the risk on trade was back. It was up 10% a couple of days ago. And it's doing quite nicely. And other things are up along with it, like Coinbase, like other names that are related to crypto.
One clue that I had, even with the down move with Bitcoin in particular, before obviously this week has happened, was I was looking at blockchain, BLOK, and that never really sold off with the crypto area. So that told me that from a technological standpoint, that's of course the ledger, that there was still a lot of bullishness in terms of the future of just using alternative currency and cryptocurrency. So I think that was really a big clue that maybe a lot of people overlooked, particularly the bears. But also, I think we need to talk about gold here because gold is making new all-time highs. So with all the roseate picture, one does have to ask why, right?
So you would you be a buyer of anything related to Bitcoin? People are also awaiting the Ethereum ETFs and the approval there near term, right, sooner than later. So are you a buyer of something related to Bitcoin? Are you a buyer of something related to gold?
Well, gold, we've been in gold for probably 3 years now. We've rode the waves, we've bought on the dips. Silver, of course, for a while was outperforming, and even though it's doing well, gold has kind of taken the front seat right now. And of course, it's a safety play. So yeah, I mean, there is still a lot of worry, and there's always going to be worry, right? The market climbs the wall of worry. But going back to the crypto space, I think, obviously I would have liked to have seen people get in over 60,000. I think your risk would have been a little bit better. Now that we're at 64, 65, there's maybe a little bit more risk. But I think you got to look at some of the other areas. I really am bullish in Chainlink. For example, I would say that's probably my number one pick. We've been accumulating actually something, and this is for me personally, by the way, on the dips. I think that has a real future. So I'd keep my eye on that too. It just crossed 14. If it holds around there, I think it's got lots of upside. So that would be another place to put some money.
Yeah, what was that? What was the ticker symbol on that? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear right then.
It's chain link. It's something that
Chain link.
and
Okay.
yeah, you have to have a crypto wallet in order to be able to trade that.
Yeah, to get that. Cannabis, solar, you like areas there as well, right?
Well, cannabis, interestingly enough, Vance was very pro-cannabis in the past. But what's happening in cannabis really has nothing to do with the oncoming election. On Monday, actually, I think is the deadline for whether or not they're going to be rescheduling cannabis. And right now, and I think you and I talked about this the last time, Philip Morris has kind of been my barometer, if I had to say, my inside trade look, because I think the big tobacco will be all over it if it does get rescheduled. And Philip Morris has made a nice move up, and now we're seeing MSOS start to move up. I think we're already long at the $8 level. That looks good. Switching over to your question on solar, again, here's these presuppositions, right? Trump becomes president, oil and gas goes crazy, solar goes down even further. But actually, the opposite has happened when you would assume that for Biden, where alternative energy would have gone up and oil and gas would have gone down. That hasn't happened. So I think regardless, that's why they have to look at things in their own merit. Right now, solar looks very cheap. And I don't think it's going away. I think it's still pretty much going to be the future, regardless of who the president's going to be. So you've got looking at TAN, for example, the ETF, and it's been basing out around the $40 level. It's not much higher than that. It starts to pick up. That could be another interesting play.
Yeah, so you have this solar ETF, TAN. You also have Symbotic in the technology realm, and AI-powered robotic and software platform, and Amgen. Tell us about Symbotic and Amgen. You like those. You would buy those today.
Well, yeah, so there are two different areas, right? So let's start with Symbotic. So Symbotic makes automation, basically robots for warehousing. Like, for example, a Walmart is starting to switch to a Symbotic type of formula because it grabs things very quickly. And of course, since it's using AI, it does things much more intelligently. That stock was floundering, and now I think part of the reshoring trade and the anticipation that we could be manufacturing and doing more in the U.S., certainly if there's a Trump presidency, people are feeling that way. That thing has just really taken a nice pop. And you have the chart up right here. If you look, you can see how much support there was at lower levels, and it's popping from there. Amgen, I like biotech. I've liked biotech for a while. That thing took off. Amgen, of course, has already been trading really well. And there's a couple of names in there, too, if you don't like big momentum stocks. I would be looking at Pfizer, Regeneron looking kind of interesting. So there's a couple of areas there for people who want to play in the biotech space.
Yeah. So are you generally bullish, it sounds like? Is that how you're feeling overall, quickly?
Well, I think I'm the classic trader, right? I always worry. I get up in the middle of the night and check the markets. But so there's always that worry. And seasonally, there's been talk that actually tomorrow, July 17th, often is the peak for the markets. August is not always a good month. And anything, of course, can happen. We still have a lot of risks out there, geopolitics being probably the number one risk. But nonetheless, at this point, unless I see a real reversal from the highs that we had today, particularly in these small caps, like if it breaks down under 217, which would now be the new July 6-month calendar range high, maybe I'll get a little bit more cautious. But for right now, it looks great.
Right, and you do like the seasonality, at least for July so far. Thank you, Mish Schneider, marketgauge.com. Good to see you, Mish. Thanks.